1320 WILS Morning Wake Up here. We've done segments before on the shortage of police officers here in mid-Michigan in Lansing and the difficulties that municipalities like the city of Lansing have had hiring and getting qualified new officers. Variety of reasons for that, right? Well, some of the most recent ones have been, how do we value the thin blue line of officers here and what's going on in our society with at times an anti-cop culture that resonates out there. And we've also done segments on cops who've gone bad. We've had state lawmakers on who push forward to make it harder for cops who are bad cops to kind of bounce from job to job. And that makes sense, too. There's a yin and yang of it. But there's some basic economics going on here, too, that make it really hard. The city of Lansing itself now facing, better part of half of its budget to pay for unfunded liabilities of retirees and their pension, which is required by law, and their health care to stay up to date with that. How do you properly pay new law officers on the streets taking care of public safety and recruit in on a regular basis? And when you get to big cities like Detroit, like, for example, Houston, Texas, fourth largest in the country, how do you handle that in the 21st century? Dr. Alex Del Carmen, back with us, School of Criminology at Tarleton State in Fort Worth. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
It's the $1 million, maybe more than $1 million question. How do you keep a properly outfitted and trained and robust, positive attitude police force at a time when municipal dollars are dwindling and the public trust in some sectors of officers has fallen for a variety of reasons as well? It's not easy, is it?
That's exactly right. I mean, not only is it not easy, it's almost becoming an impossible quest for many law enforcement agencies across the United States. If you look at the negativity that has been publicized in the past few years, we call it the Ferguson effect on police officers, the idea that some people are simply, pretty much turned away from even considering that as a profession. Then you've got the millennial factor, as some people have called it, which is that a lot of millennials are coming into the workforce now with opportunities that my generation and perhaps others never had before. The ability of being able to get on social media and look for a job in, across the globe that pays 3 times the salary that you would have otherwise received. And then on top of that, you've got a lot of folks that are retiring from the law enforcement community now. A lot of these baby boomers that are now leaving. And so all of that is happening at the same time. And as you noted earlier, you've got cities that don't have the money to be competitive in terms of salaries. I mean, it's really becoming a serious problem, and one that I think we're going to see the effects of that in the coming years.
This was a job, though, that people were drawn to. Where I grew up, if you talked to kids when I was in 2nd, 3rd grade, whatever, and you polled them and you said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And at that time, again, because of the gender differences which have changed now, it would be primarily boys, and now it's boys and girls. I get that. But at the time, a boy would say, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be an airline pilot, I want to be a baseball player, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a police officer. That was the kind of job that appealed to a young person that they were attracted to. And before they ever knew how much money they made or what the benefits were, there was something about it that was so solid. Does that remain, or is that in danger too?
I think that remains to some degree. I mean, there's still always going to be the population or the people that are going to seek a job for ideals that are beyond any benefits and beyond anything that, you can give someone. But at the same time, what we are seeing is sort of a, if you want to call it the next scholarly article that perhaps I or others will write, is we're seeing people that are coming into the profession that are, 18 years old, right out of high school. They start getting a college degree because they have to wait till they're 21 in most of the states to become police officers. And so by the time they get to be 21 years old, they're almost done with their bachelor's degree. And at that point, they're looking at possibilities for a job, and they're saying to themselves, you know what, I'd rather go federal. I'd rather go and be a federal law enforcement officer, get paid more money, have a better job, more security, and less scrutiny as a federal agent than I would as a local officer.
Well, then you have people, young adults, saying for the first time probably in our modern history, some of them saying, I've looked it over, it's not worth it. That's a terrible thing, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I don't think we're doing anything to turn that around. The reality is they're having family conversations. A lot of these young men and women that would have otherwise entered law enforcement, they're sitting down with their parents, and they're asking them, so what do you think I ought to do? And the parents are saying to them, I know what you should not do, and that is go local law enforcement. The hours are going to be lousy. It has the highest rate of suicide among other professions. It has the highest rate of alcoholism, and divorce rates, are staggeringly high. So why would you want to join a law enforcement community that is under fire constantly? 2 days ago here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we lost a police officer in the line of duty. It serves as a reminder to us all as to the preciousness of what they give for the rest of us to be able to live.
Well, but the worst thing about that, too, and you've gone through this in Dallas now more than once, especially famously a couple of years ago, you've got officers, though, they put their life in and they understand that you're going to lose members of the profession due to a criminal element, chasing down, whatever, in the line of duty. But you have officers now who get targeted in the line of duty, and that wasn't the way before. And that's another factor in them saying, I don't know if this is worth it, and hearing from their families as well.
That's exactly right. And in fact, the night that we lost the officer 2 nights ago, that same night, within hours of the officer getting shot and killed, we saw a patrol unit from the Dallas Police Department that was shot at. On the front of it, the gunman is still loose, and the officer could have easily lost his life if he had not been, maybe by the grace of God, that just a few inches that the bullet actually missed his head. So at the end of the day, they're shooting at officers. They're targeting officers, and officers are underarmed. They don't have the protection of the citizenry that is behind them for the most part, and they've got a wave of legal battles to fight if something happens. And so it is really not a job that many people are seeking right now.
Do you fear in some future date here, short term, medium term, long term, that there will be areas of civil unrest due to this factor, and that it will be worse than it might have been with a properly equipped, trained, good attitude set of law enforcement at the local level? Is that the danger that we look at going forward?
I think it's going to happen at some point. I don't think we're there yet, but I think if we continue this trend, I think we're going to find ourselves in a situation at some point in some city in the United States where law enforcement is going to be largely, underpowered, not only in terms of ammunition, but also in terms of support. I think right now, even though things are critical, I wouldn't argue that that's going to happen anytime soon, because, a lot of cities enjoy the benefit of having support from other cities. But I think if we continue this trend, maybe 20, 30 years down the road, I wouldn't be surprised if that does happen. Absolutely.
Well, of course, regionalism is something we're looking at very heavily here in the state of Michigan, of sharing resources, because, let's face it, local departments, many of them no longer have any choice. They have to look at that rather than being standalone. Dr. Alex Del Carmen, School of Criminology, Criminal Justice, and Strategic Studies, Tarleton State. Always good to have you aboard. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Alex Del Carmen, Morning Wake Up, 1320. Food for Thought, WILS.